Hello viewers, welcome to our show, Parenting with Winnie. First of all, before I introduce today's guest and before I talk about what we're going to be doing today, I would like to thank you all that subscribed to our channel, that liked, that sent comments, that called us. I read a book, I think it was by Oprah Winfrey, and she says that every time people have been talking or giving speeches, and you can imagine what Oprah's circles are, they usually ask, was that okay? So when we finished our first episode, my question was that okay? So when I got the likes, the subscriptions, the notifications, the comments, the very good comments, it felt to me like you were telling us that was okay. So I can't ask for more. Thank you very much. And today, I once again welcome to our second episode. I'm excited, but I'm so honored today to host Pastor Hassan. Pastor Hassan is here because some people really wanted him to be on this show. So I'm very happy that he could make his time to be with us today. You're welcome, Pastor Hassan. And today we're going to talk about parenting in general. We're going to actually ask ourselves what is parenting, and how do we parent? Are we doing it the right way? Not that we are parenting experts, we are also struggling parents that keep learning every day, and from different forums, from different people, from people that have been there before us, and we are here to learn with you. So welcome once again, and welcome Pastor Hassan.
Thank you.
Maybe briefly to tell you a bit about Pastor Hassan, who is here with us today. He's a husband to a very beautiful wife. He's a father to very sweet kids. And let me tell you a bit about what he has done. Pastor Hassan has previously been a youth pastor at CLA, but currently he's leading the men's ministry. He serves as a country partner at Redwoods Leadership Limited, which is a development and training organization. If I say it wrongly, please feel free to say no. He's also a mentor and a coach to young men, and he has a passion for a generation that finds and walks in their God-given purpose. So, Pastor Hassan, you're very welcome to this show.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for having me, Winnie.
Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you so much for coming, because people wanted to hear from you. And maybe, let me say that if there's someone else you feel like, oh, I wish I would listen now to so and so, please feel free to give me a call or to write it in our comments. You never know, we might be able to bring that person on board. Pastor Hassan, do you think the way I introduced you is enough, or is there something else that you'd like to tell our viewers today?
I think that would suffice for now. I just want to say I am really, really honored to be on your show, Winnie. And even before we started the show, I was just asking you, what inspired you to start this journey. I want to, before the viewers, affirm this call and this burden of bringing parenting tips and principles to the world in general. And for just heeding the call. I'm really, really proud of the work that you're doing. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. So Pastor Hassan, today, kindly, will you tell us, as parents sometimes we struggle. I read something that said that, I think it was actually a video we watched, and someone said, I was a perfect parent and then I became a mom. And I'm like, okay, that is just me. Those days when you go into people's homes and you think, what kind of kids are these? And then now you're the parent and you're like, okay. Or you go to a party and you think children are messing up everything. I think, oh God, what kind of children are these?
Yes.
And now today you're the parent. So when they're asking, whose children are these? You're actually the mother. So yeah, welcome once again. And so Pastor Hassan, what is parenting? And
Wow.
yeah. What are we doing? What should we be doing? What is parenting? I think it was okay when it was called parent until they added ing. So what is parenting?
Yeah, thank you so much, Winnie. Number one is parenting. For me, I call it a journey of stewardship. Okay, and we all know who a parent is. A parent is somebody that has either biological children or they have guardianship over children that are in their custody. But parenting is the process, which for me I call a journey, because number one is you never graduate from parenting.
So there's no day we are going to say...
Absolutely, we're not going to say this is your graduation day, we are Kwambika. No. It's a journey, and the only way you graduate is when we put you in that box and you go to your creator. So it's a journey.
The creator will also ask us what.
Exactly, that is now where we give account, because I talked about stewardship being, it's a journey of stewardship. So what is stewardship? Stewardship is basically managing either people or things for somebody else. And our children are God's. They are God's property. They are God's children. And we've simply been given a small period of time, which could be your lifetime as an adult, to parent them as a stewardship, as a manager. And when your time is done, you give account to the owner, who is God.
That is scary.
So yeah, I know it's a bit scary, but so it's that journey. So what do you do on the journey? You nurture, you discipline, you provide, you protect. You do so many things to make sure that this person becomes the best person that they can be, so that they can be able to pass on that same legacy of being good parents, because they learned from good parents. But you and I know, Winnie, that it's not an easy journey. It
is a very hard journey.
Exactly. We are all on this journey as students of parenting, and you never learn, you never become so knowledgeable, because there's always new things to learn on this journey.
True.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, that's what I could say.
And I think sometimes we are parenting from different generations. I mean, I don't think how I was parented then is the way I would be parenting my own today.
Yes.
It is so different.
Exactly, and that is why you can't say that I have mastered parenting. Because you are brought up in a different generation, your children are being raised in a different generation, so you have to have a sense of flexibility to be able to, there are certain principles that don't change, obviously, but there are certain variables that have to change every time we're faced with the new generation.
Wow. And do you think there's a one size that fits all? Like we should, is there something that you can tell me today, Winnie, we are all going to parent like this from today till the day God calls us off, or do we do it different, or do we, so how do we do it? Yeah,
to be honest with you, it's not like a cookie cutter. A cookie cutter is like a mold. You can't put parenting into a certain mold, because then it can be a recipe for disaster. But like I said, there are certain principles in parenting that are set. We maybe apply them differently, but they are principles. You cannot break the rules. Okay? But there are certain variables of parenting that are unique to each family. They are unique to the personality type and makeup of a child. I mean, I've seen your 4 beautiful children, and I've had a conversation with them. They're different.
True.
I mean, promise.
I wish they would do the same, then it would be easier for me.
I know. If they were the same, then you would be just applying and scaling times 4, but they are different. Their needs are different, their aspirations are different, the way they think and reason, they're different. They're different age groups. You know, you have, I've just had a conversation with Prince. He's finishing his senior 6, and then you have Stephen, who is your last born, is still in prime. I mean, you cannot do the same thing for all. You would burn out, and your children would not benefit.
So we can't parent the same.
Absolutely
Different families, different people will do it different.
Yes.
But then why do we sometimes feel like, I want to do it like the way Pastor Hassan does it, then Pastor Hassan thinks this one is doing it different. You know, why do we always feel like, you know?
I think for me, I call that the pressure of perfectionism. And it has both a good side to it and a bad side. The good side about it is that if Winnie has mastered certain things and her children have turned out well, I would like to borrow a leaf. There's nothing wrong with that. Tell me, how are you able to parent teenagers? How are you able to, when your daughter was going through this season, how were you able to, so we learn from each other. That's why people that have become experts are able to put these principles in books so that we read and learn from their experience. That is number one. But number two, if we want to parent exactly like Winnie parents because she has done it well, and I forget that I have my own way of doing things, I have my own strengths and weaknesses, then I begin to drive my children the way I see other people doing it.
And maybe that comes to the comparison when
exactly.
I'll tell Prince, oh Prince, can't you do it the way so-and-so son is doing it?
Yeah, and that switches children off.
And sometimes as parents we do that.
A lot. And sometimes we do it by default, but sometimes we also do it from a place of, I want my children to turn out like the other people. But then we forget the fact that those parents have walked a certain journey, they've put certain things in place, and they have not gone and shopped from Simba Supermarket a perfect parenting kit. No. They've walked a journey, they've paid the price. So what we need to do is humble ourselves and get on the journey. No matter how late we are on the journey, we can always catch up. Yeah, but so it's a bit consoling. Yeah, it's
it's nice to know.
Every time I visit a few friends who are good parents and I see how their children are behaving, how disciplined their children are, sometimes I feel like, I wish I could clone my kids and they look like these kids, but you can't.
Do you think sometimes the neighbor's garden is greener?
Yeah, that is so true. In fact, someone said, Winnie, that our neighbor's garden is always greener, yet ours is watered. So you water your own garden, but you don't see that you're doing good in the resources that you have. The grass is always green on the other side.
On the other side.
Yeah.
So, Pastor Hassan, well, that is consoling knowing that it is not too late. We can always start wherever we are. We can always start at. But I think there is a way that maybe we should be doing it in a way that. What should we be following to parent? Are there like steps? Are there like ways? Are there like what do we do? How do we start? And we have also learned that we can't parent all of them the same way. They're different ages. They're different personalities. So are there some steps to follow?
Sure.
What is there that we can follow as parents?
Yeah, thank you very much. There are definitely different steps of parenting. And you see, the beautiful thing about information is that it's readily available for us. Some people have taken the things we are struggling with and they've been able to package them and put them in form of books. So there are tons of books out there where you can read certain things and steps to parenting. And for the purpose of this conversation, I just did some research from books that you might even know yourself. And two different things that I read and I want to talk about. Number one is the types of parenting.
Okay.
And then number two, time allowing, we'll talk about the stages of parenting.
Please, we will have to make sure we have the time.
Yeah, so
that's why we're here.
Exactly. So there based on a book that I read, there are 4 types of parenting. Number one is the authoritarian type of parenting. This is where you have parents that are militaristic in the way they parent. And oftentimes it's something that is passed on from the way we were parented. You had a very tough parent.
And you think this was the best way? So
I turned out well.
I'm going to do.
Yeah, who would say, they used to beat me like I was a cow, but I turned out well. And then we think that is parenting. So that type of parenting is where it is characterized by having very high expectations of your kids. You want your kids to conform to a certain way of doing things, to comply to your rules and regulations as a parent. It is very restrictive. It is punitive. It puts a very high premium on punishment and performance. And it's one type of parenting that many kids, including myself, grew up in. Tough parents, when your father drives into the gate, everyone scatters, including the cat. Everyone goes to their room because the Afande.
The cat knows the dad is
Afande Hajes. That's one type of parenting. And usually authoritarian parents they're not as responsive to the needs of their children. So because they're used to doing things a certain way, what I say is what goes. So when a child has needs, when a child has certain problems they're going through, you're the least person they will ever go to, because they know that yours is always being reactive. Everything, you're saying what?
Maybe that explains why sometimes parents are the last to know.
Yeah.
Do you know, in most cases, even when children are into drugs and what,
exactly,
the parent is always the last to know.
So now, when your type of parenting is authoritarian in nature, imagine your kids are young, and that is how you parent them. When they grow into teenagers, and now they're developing a different identity, a different, and I will talk about it in the preceding show, parenting teenagers, is that you're the least point of reference for their issues. They will rely on their friends. Oftentimes their friends, they are limited in knowledge. They will rely on other sources of information, and you'll be the last to know. Why? Because you always parent in an authoritarian nature. So that's number one. There's a second type of parenting.
But is there an advice you can give to the first one? What if I feel like, oh goodness, I lie in this category? What should I do as a parent?
Yeah, I think if you don't mind, if we can go through them,
then
so that now we can say, how do we now speak into these different situations? Because each type of parenting, there's a response and advice to it. Yeah. The second type of parenting is permissive parenting. Permissive parenting is where literally parents have given over authority
to the
children. The children run the show. And I'm sure in your experience in parenting and talking to different parents, you know that this comes as a result of certain things. Number one is that you probably grew up with an authoritarian parent yourself, and you say, the moment I have children, I will never subject my children to what I saw growing up.
Then you do it totally different.
You become the opposite, where now for you become permissive, you become so liberal. You're like, no, do what you want, and there are no boundaries, there are no rules, there are no guidelines. As a parent, in fact, your children run the home. I don't know if you've seen scenarios where you go into a supermarket and there's a 4-year-old who has literally held the entire supermarket at ransom.
Yeah.
And then you see the parent is totally disempowered. They don't know what to do because they have never allowed themselves to parent in a certain way. They're like, oh, little Johnny, okay, njekuguha bombo, please don't pull out things on the shelf. And then for you, you're watching from the side, you feel angry, you're like, just,
he's a kid, for Christ's sake.
You're like, this is a kid. Why is the kid ruling over you? Yeah. That is a permissive parent. And, we have very many homes that run where at a very young age, children are given the liberal free will to do certain things, and that is dangerous. Okay, it's dangerous, and you and I know that can be a bit dangerous. There's another form of parenting, the third one. The third one is neglectful parenting. Now, this is the kind of parenting where really children are left to raise themselves. The parent is there, but is not there.
Like they're present or absent?
They can be present in the body, but they're absent in the intentionality to raise their children. I grew up in Uganda where there are primary boarding schools. And as early as primary 1, your child has turned 5-6 years old, you ship them off to boarding school. And for from 9 to 10 months out of the entire year, your children are being parented by someone else. That is neglectful parenting. My wife went to boarding school at P1. Okay, so from 6 years, all through her life, she was never with her parents because they only had a limited space during the holidays, and you cannot do much. And when I came to Rwanda, I was really, really shocked to find that boarding schools for primary are not allowed.
True.
Why? Because that is the most formative time of your child, and you need to be present as a parent, because the kind of input you give your child, no one else, you can never pay anyone any amount of money to put certain value systems in your child than you can as a parent. So we have that neglectful parent. Now, it might not be a situation of boarding schools like certain parents, but it can just be you're a busy parent. You are busy, you have work to do, you have all these things that you have to do out there, and you're not there. And you've delegated your parenting to maybe a nanny or a relative who might be home. So that is another type of parenting, which is also not good.
Yeah.
The final type of parenting is the ideal, the one that we would all wish to have. Time,
nice
opportunity.
to know that there is that point of an ideal parent, because I've been thinking, so which side do I belong to? Which side am I?
It is the ideal parent, and it's called authoritative parenting. It's different from authoritarian parenting. Authoritarian is dictatorship. Authoritative is a balance of boundaries, but also allowing children to have a say, of discipline and love, of provision,
carrot and stick.
Character, yes, carrot and stick, exactly. It's really a fair balance, and this is where you notice a child progress from one stage to another, and you still offer that kind of parenting. So authoritative parents, they set limits, and also they demand maturity. When they are punishing a child, they will let the child know why they're being punished for that particular offense. This is the type of parenting where kids are told, look, when you do this, it has a consequence. And this is where you grow a friendship where there's both conversation, but then there's also punishment and discipline, which is not punitive in nature, but it's really geared towards teaching. And this is where there are healthy boundaries in a home. This is where respect is taught. This is where character formation is taught. This is where so many things are taught, but there's a presence. The parent is present, as in intentionally present. That is the ideal.
Can I ask?
Yes, please go ahead. Now I'm done listening through them. Please, and I would like to hear from you as well. Speak into them.
Do you decide what kind of parent you should be? Or is it something inborn, or is it something we choose? Or when do I know that I think I'm becoming a bad parent or a good parent?
Yes.
So who decides?
Yes, number one is that, and that's why I'm really, really grateful that you've come up with a show such as this, because parenting, none of us are born with the skill of parenting. You learn to parent when you become one, right? And all of us start from
get a training job.
on-job training without ever having gone to school. Exactly. So number one is that parenting can be modeled. Good parenting can be modeled. You can learn from people who have done a better job. And that's why I talked about the issue of humility. Humility says, look, I do not know,
but I'm willing
I
to
have
learn.
messed up, but I'm willing to learn.
True.
So you number one know, okay, for example, the different types of parenting that I've mentioned, I'm sure some of your parents who are listening to us, they're going to find themselves in a certain category. One would say,
and maybe some are cross-cutting.
Some are cross-cutting. Some will say, I have been a neglectful parent. I have been permissive. So you, when you learn new information, you're able to undo. It's the process of unlearning and relearning. You unlearn, you relearn, and you learn new things. So, and please give yourself grace. I would like to talk to the parents out there. Give yourself grace. No one has perfected parenting. We're all on a journey. So you had asked the question, Winnie, at the beginning. If you find yourself to be an authoritarian, you're a militaristic parenting, chances are...
Not because you're hating the children.
No, you love them.
You're actually thinking you're doing your best to give them the best.
Exactly. To be honest with you, I have found very few parents who are tough on their children because they hate them. Innately, you love your child to death that you don't want to see them mess up. So you will be so tough on them. But oftentimes we parent from what we have been given as a template.
We parent the way we were parented.
The way we were parented. So because you had a tough mom, you have to be tough. Because you had a tough dad, so
that's
it is what... Know. Yeah, but we can learn new things.
True.
Yeah. So one of the things that I have realized in my own parenting is that it is very difficult for me to change from my ways. So I understand that this is a weakness and I give it its category. And I try to hold myself accountable to the circles that hold me accountable. Number one is my wife, who is my co-parent.
Sure.
But number two are people that I've allowed into my inner circle to say, look, I want to be a better parent, but I have this weakness. I can be so tough on my kids. You know?
Oh, so you're passing on exactly that which you
Exactly. So for me not to be so tough, so tough, how can I learn now to be authoritative other than authoritarian? What are some of the things that I need to learn? And who can hold me accountable? So oftentimes you will find a situation in a home where different parents subscribe to different types of parenting. So you have an authoritarian, who is a father, for example, and you have a permissive, who is a mother. That's a good balance in a way, because your children get a bit of each. a bit of each, though all of them sound like their weaknesses. Yeah, so it's about learning and say, look, there are good ways of doing these things. Where is the information? How can I apply myself to this information? And how can I not raise a damaged child?
I tell people I read parenting books, but I still remain the same.
Exactly.
I read these books, but I still remain the same.
Yeah.
I've read this, but I'm still remaining the same. So I think one point I'm getting from you is that be intentional.
Yeah, be intentional, and then also do not be discouraged with the fact that change takes time. The last thing that I would want you to do, Winnie, is to stop reading books because you realize you're not changing.
That is true.
No, change is a compounding thing that comes over time. I'm sure there's certain things that you have read in those books that have changed the way you parent,
well, that is
even when you're still in a certain way.
That is so true. I don't know what I would be if I would not have read those books.
Exactly.
I'm not where I should be, like they always say.
Yes.
But I'm not where I've been.
You used to be. Exactly. So it's a journey. It's a journey. When I was still serving as a youth pastor in the church where I serve, CLA, one of the things that I faced, because as youth I would deal with younger teenagers from 13 all the way to young professionals who are post-university and new in the marketplace. And I would get so many parents visit my office, and a parent would say, look, my last born is 17, okay? My firstborn is 27, they are maybe married and they're, haven't I lost time? You know?
I know.
I was an authoritative.
I believe that there could be someone out there who
Yes.
thinks exactly the same.
I was an authoritarian parent. And this is now when I'm getting this information. It is not too late. It is not too late. And that is where now we need to go to the stages of parenting, where now you need to know, okay, if I missed a stage, how do I redeem it? Okay, how do I redeem it? And there are ways of redeeming time and redeeming our mistakes, but we can only build, for example, that the particular case I'm telling you of these parents, you can only redeem it by being humble. And I keep telling parents, are you willing to humble yourself and seek forgiveness from your children who are now adults? Because they are not young enough for you to change. There are certain things that you have broken them with your kind of parenting, but they are still your children, they still honor you, and deep inside they still love you. If you came to them and said, look, there's information I didn't know.
Forgive me wherever.
Forgive me, and I know that
I wonder how many parents do that.
That's what I said, humility is key. If you're not willing to be humble, then allow your children to grow up with this damage that they will pass on to the next generation. Just be humble. Which is bad. Just be humble and say, look, there are things I didn't know. I raised you the way I thought best. I'm not excusing myself. I realize now that I was wrong. Yeah. So the stages of parenting. Number one, the first stage is loving discipline. And this is usually...
Who loves discipline? Me, the parent?
Yeah, you have to discipline in a loving way. So it is called loving discipline. Because discipline alone, without love as its anchor, it can damage a child.
True.
So from ages 1 to 5, that is the stage of loving discipline, because your children come into the world as a template. They're a blank disk, if you will, if I'm to use the technology language. They're a hard disk that has nothing written on. That is the time you teach values, you teach morals, You teach boundaries, you teach consequences to actions. That is the time you punish for mistakes. That is the time you show these children that, look, actions have consequences. If you do this, this will be the consequence.
You also reward.
You reward good actions. Because the consequence of a good action is a reward.
True.
The consequence of a
Even
bad action.
The Bible is clear.
The Bible is full of information on that. And but this discipline needs to be done in love. The Bible says in the book of Hebrews chapter 12 that the Lord disciplines those he loves.
That's true.
Without love, discipline is painful. Discipline can be seen as punishment, as torture. Yeah, so discipline has to be coupled with love. So when your children are between 1 and 5, that is not the time for you to make friends with them and to.
Sometimes you think they're too young to learn.
No, absolutely not. A child learns from the time they come out of the womb.
They start to learn.
They start to learn because they're becoming acculturated to their environment, and there are certain things they learn.
And what do you say about me telling him, you need to tell me the truth, and then tomorrow they hear me lying to Pastor Hassan.
Exactly.
Pastor Hassan, I'm in the house, but I'm actually on the way.
Exactly. You're in the house, but there's
But you're actually still in the house.
Confuses your children, and at this stage, it confuses them so much because they don't understand, because they're like, Mommy keeps telling us to tell the truth, but Mommy just like, so what is truth? You know,
So the kids are actually getting confused.
they're just confused. That is why the best way, the second stage actually, is from ages 5 to 12 is the training stage. Now, this is where you model certain things. So you have to live by a certain code of conduct. You have to live with integrity.
I love that
because
one.
you cannot teach what you don't live.
We can't give what we don't have.
Absolutely not. And you see the mistake we make, Winnie, is that we are the primary source of information to our children. We are their primary source of learning. Forget school.
Yeah.
Yes, school trains them, education and all that. But in terms of values and how I should live, you're the mirror as a parent.
I don't like knowing that.
I know. It's a bitter pill.
It is a bitter
So
pill.
if you tell a child, in this family we speak the truth. As children of God, we speak the truth.
Be number
Are
one.
you truthful in your dealings? Or do you give truth when it's convenient? When it's inconvenient, you can throw in a lie here and there. And they watch us. They watch
I
us.
think they watch more than they listen to what we tell them. They're little copycats.
You know, like you go to the market, for example, you're with your 7-year-old daughter, and you're trying to buy oranges from this lady. I tell you, man, tell me, says that, but yesterday I bought it at this much so that you can get a bargain. And you know that you're lying for a convenient bargain. And then your daughter, 7-year-old, oh, okay, so I can learn live to get myself
And tomorrow will be the first day lie to
compound. It has started pre-soko. You're trying to buy all oranges. Tomorrow there will be a manager and they need to give a tender. Your child. And you modeled it. And so it's in the small things. We have to be very, very careful. So stage 2 is important from 5 to 12 because that's when we are training. That's when we are educating. That's when we are exposing them to the world that is out there and to the information that the world has to offer.
It is very difficult, but you can.
It is. Everything I'm sharing,
very
to be
hard.
honest with you, Winnie, it is difficult. Everything I'm
It's
sharing,
very hard for them.
yeah, but it's learnable,
But if
and that's
we're
why we have a show
intentional
like this.
And the point you said of humility, we can do
Yes,
it.
absolutely.
We swallow our pride and say, yes,
Yeah.
I can do it.
Yeah.
And maybe also remembering that before I lie to this person, I'm teaching someone else to tell the truth.
True.
Yeah, before I do this.
Exactly. It's important. The other important part about this stage that our audience needs to know is that this is the stage where we solidify the culture we want to see in a home and the culture you want to see in your children. This is the stage. If they miss it at this stage, it will be very difficult to instill later on. This is where, for example, if we are a praying home, this is where you say, look, this is who we are. If we're a home where we do chores, we pick up after ourselves. A nanny is not going to lay your bed. You slept in it, you lay it. This is where we say we honor and respect everyone, irrespective of whether they are less in social status or higher. That is where you set the culture. And this is where you teach in our home with our children. We've taught them when they're young magic words. Courtesy, being courteous. Thank you.
Sorry.
Please. I'm sorry. Excuse me. May I have?
Do you use them yourselves?
Oh yes, absolutely. As much as possible. We
True.
try to model them as much as possible. So between 1 and 5, it's a must. So, for example, if they want a cookie, and then they maybe tell a nanny, so and so, can I have a cookie? We say, what did you say? So we are always ready to correct between loving discipline. You're not going to have a cookie because you have not been courteous towards Mary, for example.
You didn't use your magic word.
Yes, you didn't use your magic word. So the consequence is you're going to miss out on a cookie. Next time, this is how you ask.
Can I ask, what happens when she says please and I actually don't want to do it?
Yeah. So
Because my daughter has said, Mommy, please.
Yes.
And I've said no.
Yes. So
What
again,
does that mean?
in teaching them, in teaching and training your children, they need to know that these words should never be used to manipulate.
Exactly.
Yeah. They are good words to use, but they are not a ticket to manipulate me to give you something that's... So having conversation, being conversational with your child is important. Because when you're conversational, you're able to explain, like, look, now the meaning of please, you're taking away the value of please. Because now you're using, I already said no because of A, B, C, D. So when you say please, you take away a good word and its value because you're misusing it. Yeah. So, but at the training stage, 5 to 12, is where it is absolutely vital to sink those values in so that they become second nature.
Pastor Hassan, should we allow our children to do chores even when we have nannies?
Absolutely. It is absolutely imperative.
Why?
And we'll talk about it in detail in the next show when we're talking about parenting teenagers. Because look, they are transitioning into adulthood where they're going to have to be responsible of their own lives, where nothing is going to be handed to them for free, where they will have to work to eat. Okay? So we can't create an environment where everything is handed to them and they do nothing. That is absolutely irresponsible parenting. And if we've been doing that as parents, and again I said, like you said, sometimes because you grew up and you were doing everything, you're like, my child won't suffer.
We have actually made statements like,
yes.
Let my children rest.
No, that is wrong. It could have been done to an extreme when you're being raised, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't do it at all.
And I think at the end of the day, we know that we are all living because we're working.
Exactly.
So if we don't train them where will they learn?
Work is a God-given virtue that we need to train when our kids are still young. Yeah. So that now when the time comes where they now need to work to live.
And they'll have to be independent.
Exactly.
One day they're going to leave your home.
Number one is they don't sulk at work. They don't feel like they're being overworked. They have trained, they're proud to work because it's a noble thing. It's something that I'm proud of. Now the third stage of parenting is between the ages of 13 and 18. Now this is very critical. And the next show we'll be talking about parenting teenagers. When your child transitions into the teenage season, you move from training and loving discipline to coaching. Because they're now forming their own identity.
What is coaching?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Coaching is coming alongside them and say, look, I have trained you to do this thing. I now need to see you to watch you doing it. And if you're not doing it well, I can say, this is how you need to do it. So now your level of closeness with your child needs to increase. Your level of friendship needs to increase. But it is a season where they are now becoming an adult. They need to think for themselves. They need to do things independently. Now you stand as a coach and say, you did very well there, son. Now if you can improve on ABCD, you'll do even better. Okay? How do you discipline in this stage? Because a 16-year-old boy, if you try to discipline them when the way you discipline them at 5, they can fold and beat you up, or you know, or it causes rebellion. We discipline teenagers by denying them privileges. Certain things are ineffective. You cannot cane a teenager. No. You can't spank a teenager. That causes a certain wounding that it can't
Like
cause when they're younger.
pinch
I used to pinch and all that. Transition as a parent, even as an authoritative
to
parent.
talk to them.
Transition. You're now a coach. You tell them, look, you are 14 years old. You know, in our days or in the olden days, at your age, you would be a mother. Of course, they used to marry them off younger. We're not saying that was
So
right.
true.
But you need to live responsibly. You, as a 14, this is not expected of you. We expect better. So go and do that again and give me results. You know, it's more conversational because you're in the coaching stage. It's very, very critical. It's very critical. Does that mean you don't discipline? You discipline, but you discipline differently. You discipline by denying privileges. For example, you can say, because you did not do ABCD,
You cannot have
ABCD. And I hope you understand. Do you understand? Yes. They know the consequences of their inaction and the fact that they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
Wow. Is that the last
The
stage?
final one.
Or do we still parent
18
even after
and
that?
above. Oh yes. We said until you go to the grave.
Okay.
So the last one is 18 plus. And this is the stage of friendship.
Now they're young adults.
They're young adults, some grown to become adults, and they give you very beautiful grandchildren. It is friendship. It is friendship where you are now their friend. You can advise, but you can't command. You can give them a pointer or two, but you can't tell them do this because they are adults. Right now their life is in their hands, and whatever they need to do, they take responsibility for it. Now the challenge is this, Winnie, even as I wrap up and have you speak into this. If you did not handle the stages progressively well,
It's going to be difficult at this stage.
they will not be your friend. But it's also redeemable. That's what I said. Now humility. Now humility, where you said, you know, I realize I didn't do things well when I was a child. I'm really sorry.
I messed up along
messed
the
up.
way.
How can I do better now? And children will always be forgiving, whether they're 3 or they're 30. They will always be forgiving.
They're human beings.
They're human beings. Yeah. And at a certain point when you learn, you also want your children to do better, because now you notice parents towards grandchildren become like you know, you start spoiling your grandchildren. Now imagine
my auntie who taught me how to work, who is probably
yes.
was very tough on us learning to work. But when she sees me teaching my children to work, she tells me, no, they're young.
You're like, hey, but you know, auntie, that's a bit, you know. Yeah, but wouldn't you want your children to pass on good values?
Same values.
Exactly. So if you didn't do it right, humble yourself and apologize to your children so that you can redeem the following generations of your sweet grandchildren that
so
you
you're
love.
not only doing it for yourself to heal, you're not only doing it for the relationship, you're doing it also for their children and the generations that will come
Exactly.
after.
Because you want them to course correct parenting by remodeling the right form of parenting, by apologizing if you need to, and you know. Yeah, so those are really the 2 things that I wanted to share. Number 1 is the types of parenting, but the stages of parenting.
Thank you so much, Pastor Hassan. I think viewers, oh my God, I hope you're learning along with me. I hope we are all learning together. Even Pastor Hassan is still learning. We are all learning this. And like Pastor Hassan has said, we are not about to end. I think I read a book that says that parenting is not for cowards. So come with us to the next show where we're going to talk about now parenting teenagers, again with Pastor Hassan. And thank you very much.